Mr. Worldwide.
Again, welcome everybody. Global Brothers Podcast, another exciting episode. So glad to have y'all. And today on the show we have two, dare I say, visionary. It's really hard to step outside yourself with people that you know so well and came up with. But I take my hat off to these brothers and give them all the props because they've stood the test of time. They was doing it back then. They're doing it now. This is definitely not a fly by night kind of thing, or as Brother Heath likes to say, overnight success after 20 years of trying kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, these brothers been doing it and are true lovers and passionate about music and hip hop. So welcome to the show, Grouchy Greg and Marchitect.
What's up?
Welcome, brothers. Welcome.
I'm gonna start with you, Greg. So, the world's most dangerous site. When you hear that today in 2020, the world's most dangerous site, what does that mean to you?
It means that we are on the forefront of hip hop, of cutting edge hip hop, of what is coming next, and it sums up almost the mission statement. We're not here to play it safe. We're not here to stick to the status quo, and that's kind of been our mission for the last 20 years, and now that we're in the type of situation that we're in socially and civically, it has kind of underscored our business model and the type of journalism we try to do, and why we've been relevant for the last 20 years. We're not just a site that puts up the latest rap videos. We do that too, but we've always tried to maintain the consciousness of hip hop.
So for the listeners, what Grouchy Greg is talking about is none other than allhiphop.com, which came before just about every site in terms of music or social media you could think of. So this predates Facebook, predates Instagram, Twitter, MySpace, WorldStar, or any digital version of your favorite magazine, be it Vibe or whatever else.
The iPhone complex, the Source.
Keep going.
Next, you name it. We started in 1997, and a lot of these brands didn't even have a clue as to what the internet was until about 2006, 2007. So we had a good 10-year head start on every brand, really, in the entertainment space.
So is it safe to say that people, pinched, I wouldn't say stole your blueprint, but pinched off of it and tried to emulate some of the parts?
Very safe to say. There were other hip hop sites when we started, but we were the first ones to flip to a daily format for news, for rumors, gossip, urban gossip. Those things had been on the radio, obviously, with people like Wendy Williams, but we were the first ones online really pushing this concept of news, rumors, features, music, videos. Those are mediums and concepts that I created myself at my computer, in 1996. And then we consciously made a decision to say, we're going to cover this stuff every single day, not every week, which is what most people were doing at the time. So,
yeah, the thing that I used to enjoy, I shouldn't say used to, but from the start, I enjoyed is it was timely information. It was like minute to minute, daily, up to date information that if someone said, "Did you hear about?" you went straight to All Hip Hop to check if it was facts.
And Greg, before you reply to that, I want to add in that Essence Magazine called you guys the CNN of hip hop. And when you think about CNN now, it's all about breaking news. So I remember you had the sidekick. Like, you were the first person I ever seen with the sidekick. In the hood, just like roll up and I was like, what is that? Yo, Tech, what's your brother got right now? And it's
the T-Mobile.
Yeah,
T-Mobile
you had a T-Mobile sidekick joint.
So let me say this, now that everybody works from home, this is all new, but all hip hop from the day we started it really truly was a mobile first company. I mean, I've been updating the website from a phone or a mobile device since 1997. It could have been dating it through text messaging to the site and sending commands to the site to execute certain actions. All this stuff is real simple right now. I mean, in terms of the ideas of it, even in 97, it was like revolutionary. So by 99, 2000, when the phones started to evolve a little bit, I started working on the phones. And then, T-Mobile was like the first phone that had a QWERTY keypad attached to it. Up until then, all the devices were, I used to walk around with 4 different devices in my pocket. I would have my cell phone, I would have my Motorola two-way pager, and then AOL had a device they had on their own through BlackBerry to take your instant messages and your email in your pocket with you. So I had all 3 of those. And, I was so happy when T-Mobile finally, bought the company that made the sidekicks, or Microsoft actually bought them, and then they got in bed with T-Mobile. From there, it was a wrap. I was like, oh, a QWERTY keyboard, and I can type now and, have a browser to actually interface with our website's backend. Yeah, that was like 2002, 2003. Easy.
Man, this is history, man. So like when you think about alphanumeric and even our ringtones, you guys did a lot of ringtones back in the day as well. Like, how did that progress the brand?
Well, all of the what we created were digital news alerts. So one of the things I realized in, say, 99, when I was fooling around with my phone at the time, it was called OmniPoint. OmniPoint eventually was bought by T-Mobile and became T-Mobile. But before T-Mobile was T-Mobile, they were a local company called Omni. They had a digital phone. So I figured out that I could send messages to this phone from my email address. I went back to my computer. I started sending test messages to my phone. And then I realized, you know what? I can aggregate everybody's phone numbers, start delivering them these messages to their two-way pagers and their phones. I had some friends of mine in the music business empty out their contact. So I had all, the DJ's numbers, all the executives' numbers. I mean, everybody you could want to in hip hop. And we eventually, figured out how to send messages out to everybody's devices every day at the same time. And that's what really exploded the brand. People across the industry were looking forward to receiving this news every day. And then that set off a snowball effect of people wanting to send us news and send us exclusives and do exclusive interviews. And it also allowed me, because I could reply to these messages that went out, to say, oh, look, Nori replied, or Russell Simmons replied, or whoever, Leroy Cohen replied. Let me reply to them now and try to start developing a relationship.
Wow.
And that's how, our early relationship with Russell and Leroy and all those guys started. But it was crazy because, Marlon, we had been trying to crack the music industry for 10 years prior to all hip hop, know.
Right.
And it was almost like
website before that, right?
obliquerecordings.com.
Right.
And that was based on my record label. And that was like the precursor to all hip hop, because I set that website up in like 1994. And from 94 to like 96, that was the website I used to learn the internet, figure out HTML and all these other things. So by the time all hip hop came around, like, we were ready to rock. So we had a whole history 10 years prior to all hip hop. And it was just amazing how fast we went from one side of the proverbial velvet rope to the other side. Whereas, like, damn, I couldn't even get a meeting with people, last year. And now, I'm in the Hamptons with Russell Simmons and his gang.
That's that Mike Jones syndrome. Who? Mike Jones. Hey man, I want to ask Tech a question about like, kind of like being there for the ride, looking at your older brother and like seeing what he was doing, at the same time being being a sponge, you know what I mean? Because ever since I known you, like you've been the type of dude that like takes in information and sees what they can do with it. So you know, Marchitect, you've sat there and watched, you know, like Grouchy like do his thing and like, you know, creating this platform. Like, how did you feel as an up and coming hip hop artist at that time?
Well, one thing I can say is me and my brother, our music stories kind of integrate because you know, I used to watch him make music and all that stuff, and he's always been a technologically savvy guy. So he had music equipment that other people didn't have, didn't even know how to obtain. Me being a sponge, like you said, I mean, I got on there and within a certain amount of time got just as good as, you know, the older people who were showing me how to make music and beats. And he always, you know, he always encouraged that. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid, he was like, I'm not taking you to the recording studio unless you maintain a certain grade point average. So we always took it super, super serious. So, you know, watching him do that, I knew it was going to succeed because the way Greg is, I mean, he used to always tell me when people would say, well, what are you going to fall back on if that doesn't work? And he said, well, I'm going to fall back on my ass. Then I'm going to get back up. You know what I'm saying? So it was no doubt in my mind that he's going to be successful in what he's doing because he's just one of them people that he's not going to do it if he doesn't feel all the way passionate about it. So, you know, we're similar in that way. Now, with me, I went more of the artist route. And what's funny about it is people thought that, you know, with my brother running all hip hop, that it would be super advantageous to me. Like, well, why doesn't your brother just put you on? But I tried to explain to people that would kill the credibility of my music, which is, you know, which stands alone by itself. So
Right.
when it comes to knowledge, you know, certain connections, different introductions, throwing events that I can go to, he definitely helped me in that regards, you know. But I was more, I'm like a fan and an early adopter of all hip hop. I still go on the site to this day. If I was to go on the site and see that a question mark was missing at the end of a sentence, I will stop what I'm doing, call the CEO and say, hey man, there's a question mark missing in one of the sentences. He'll thank me, go in there and fix it himself. You see what I mean? So that's kind of like that kind of is an analogy for like our relationship as like me as an artist and all hip hop, because we're brothers. So you know, another thing people say is, well, why don't you just go, you two should work together on stuff. We work better on our own things and advising each other. He'll call me and say, hey man, I'm thinking about starting this new app. What do you think about it? But it's not like we're doing business under the same, we're brothers. You know, I'd rather be brothers than work for my brother or have him working for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Wow. The dynamic that like I saw, like, you know, live, like myself from early on, is exactly like what you're saying, Tech, you know, and like, yeah, sure, like a lot of us like on the outside would wonder this or that kind of thing. But no, you're definitely right. You know, after seeing how your career has continued to blossom and grow from strength to strength, you know, I can attest, like for sure, like you stand, like, you know, you stand on your own. And I want to ask you a little bit about that. You started your own website called youheard.com. Can you tell us a little bit about that and like, you know, what that's about?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a funny story about that. So back in the day, it was a thing within our crew, especially with my brother and my other brother, Nate. They were just buying domain names. I mean, they had the vision to say, soon these names won't be available. Try buying a website name like youheard.com now. That's just one thing, you know? So Greg had all these domain names and we're doing music separately. And that just seemed like one where I was like, well, maybe I could do something with that. So he said, if you want to do something with that, and man, it's gone through so many different changes, but it's been around for maybe, I mean, it's probably been around for like 10 years now.
No, longer than that. I bought that domain name in 2001.
There you go. So look. And so yeah, we've been doing that. And then of course with that, underneath youheard.com, I got Your Heard Records, you know, Your Heard Films, my music publishing. So it's kind of like a whole media syndicate, and youheard.com is the base, the home for it.
Has anybody ever approached you guys about buying a domain?
A domain or the domains?
A domain.
Yeah, I get approached from people trying to buy domains from me all the time. I got one right now somebody's hot on me for. It's called Lovolution, Love, like revolution, but Lovolution, you know. And I have an idea for the brand, but I've been sitting on it for like 10 years and somebody's been trying to buy it. But that's one of many. I've got a bunch of domain names, and then people are always trying to buy all hip hop.
Oh, I'm sure. Have you ever had to sue anybody or do a what is it called, a what is it called, cease and desist?
Yeah, cease and desist.
For all hip hop for trying to use it?
Of course, many times, now we're in an era of social media where it's like, if you try to get everybody, you're going to be sending cease and desist letters all damn day. But we try to put a stop to it. But we definitely send out those cease and desist letters because, quite frankly, if you allow people to use your trademark and you don't defend it, you can actually, that's cause for you to actually have your trademark canceled by the trademark office, by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So you have to defend those things,
And if I can chime in, I had to sue NBC Universal for royalties.
What?
Yeah, I had to sue NBC.
Say more about that.
I did the theme song to a popular cartoon in Japan called Danganronpa. It's a hit anime, and the song is called Never Say Never. So I own my own publishing and everything like that, and I got hundreds of songs in my catalog that I own. So this song was registered the same way, and when we looked over the paperwork, there was somebody who was an intermediate, like a go-between of the deal, put themselves on the publishing as a writer for the song and all this stuff, just try to pull a fast one, thinking, we're just some guys from the United States who wouldn't notice. I mean, we immediately noticed, and it took years and years, all kinds of stuff. I had to go to Japan several times, and then it culminated, with me retaining the proper percentages of the songs. I even got more than I would have gotten if they hadn't done that, a bigger percentage, as well as Jace Mace, and we were able to negotiate retroactively, which benefited us because they had already printed DVDs, already had CDs on the shelf. They're not going to go take 1 million DVDs off the shelf. So we were able to say, well, we want this much publishing and this much for our sync fee, which would have been what they would have given us up front. You know what I mean? So it worked out for us. It just took years and a bunch of headaches and a whole lot of time. But in the end, justice was served. And
I like that. So now you can tell them congratulations. They played themselves.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Well, everyone. I mean, there's some people's business strategy is to go as long as they can without paying for stuff.
Yeah,
it's like part of their strategy.
Hey, Tech. So you've been in a number of groups, from like The Outfit back in the day, Fat Daddy Has Been, the 49ers. How do you rate the difference of like being in a collective as opposed to being solo, and like what did all those experiences teach you?
Mm-hmm. Well, with being solo, obviously there's no personalities to clash with, especially like when you're traveling. You ever travel, like people don't think about that. Like sometimes when you travel, if you take a personal vacation, you're going to travel with people who are compatible to your plans. You guys all want to do the same thing. When you're traveling with a band, I mean, it's different. You might be in a hotel room with this person and say, man, they're cool to play the guitar with, but man, they snore. I don't want to be in a hotel room with them. You know what I'm saying? So like you got the different personalities of the band, which can get tricky. But creatively, being in a band and being in a group is kind of easier because you have to contribute less. So I could walk in and Fat Daddy Has Been already has a groove going, and I could just say, well, why don't we do a little bit of this, do this, I'll say this. Whereas when you're making a solo album, you're just starting with a blank piece of paper musically and this way. And that's why like a lot of solo artists take a lot of time in between their albums. I mean, we're still waiting for the second Lauryn Hill album.
Wow. Yo, man. Yo, you're in
Detox.
Who?
Detox.
Right, true. Dre. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, Tech, you're gonna get us canceled, man. Like a lot of people don't talk about Lauryn Hill's fans, but they're more dangerous than the Beehive.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm just being real, and much love and respect to Lauryn Hill. The album's good enough that I don't think anyone noticed that there isn't a second one.
Hey man, I can say to all the Lauryn Hill fans, I know personally, be patient. That second album's coming.
Hey,
You heard it here on Global Brothers Podcast from the founder of allhiphop.com. It's coming, y'all.
it's coming.
So, Greg, I was asking you to kind of touch on that story of when you and Chuck, your co-founder, like wanted to expand the brand. You guys put on this event and like had a certain budget and maybe kind of like crossed the line.
Oh, you're talking about the Inked article.
Right, yeah.
Well, that article painted, a very narrow piece, and I wasn't very press savvy to understand at the time that, some of the things I was saying on the fly would end up, in the article. But in any case, from say 2004 to like 2012, every year we held All Hip Hop Week in New York City. And each one of those, it started off as just something our community was doing in New York. They had a barbecue at a Prospect Park in Brooklyn. So from there, after that year, it was such a good turnout and everything was so cool. We decided, why don't we do a whole week of events in New York centered around all the different elements of hip hop? So, you had a battle, Ludacris hosted it with Sway. We had a fashion show, LL Cool J hosted, and all the rappers and celebrities walked on the runway. We had a reading book to kids that Wyclef did, an art show, debate, and then like a underground hip hop showcase. So every year we did 7 of those, Monday through Sunday. We would start on Monday and we would end on Sunday. And the finale would always be a big concert. So we would always do the Nokia Theater or the Hammerstein. And the party you're talking about was one that Russell Simmons and Diddy hosted. And it was just a celebrity party. But it was cool because everybody showed up from Kool Herc to Herbie Hancock. Everybody was there.
Hey, I got a question for both of you to answer. So this is both of you have to respond to this. This is just curiosity. Have you ever met someone in the culture and got kind of fanned out? You might not have expressed it, but deep down, your wheels was churning. Like, wow, I can't believe I'm introduced, or I'm in the same space, or I'm talking to.
That happens to me all the time.
Okay.
It's still to this day.
All right, I'll give you 2. One time I performed for Bob Marley's mom, right?
All right, I'm out. Peace. I'm gone.
But as Marlon knows, because Marlon used to be a part of this, in Delaware, Bob Marley used to live in our state of Delaware, and they do a tribute to him, People's Fest. It's been going on for 20 years. So while his mother was alive, rest in peace, she would come to the fest. So when my band got hot, we were booked for the fest, and we even had some Bob Marley songs in our set. And I'm thinking, look, man, like Bob Marley's mom is in the crowd. If we don't do these songs right, like, I'm thinking, let's not even sing any Bob Marley. Like, let's do, but hey, this is our set. This is what we planned. So, we do the show. And I thought it went really well. Afterwards, the organizers of the fest are like, hey, there's somebody who wants to meet you. I'm like, okay, they take me over to this tent. Listen, Bob Marley's mom had a presence like she had a force field around her. Because she's not only Bob Marley's mom, she's Ziggy Marley's grandmom. She's Kimani Marley. She's the head of all this talent. And when you walked near her, I never felt nothing like that in my life. It felt like she had this force field of power around her. Like she didn't have to even say a word. She didn't even say much to me. She said she liked it. We ate. They brought us lunch. I ate lunch underneath the tent with her. Watched a little bit of the fest, and that was it, man. But I've never met anybody with a presence like that, celebrity or not, a spiritual leader, anybody that I've ever met. She had the strongest presence of a human being I ever met, and I would say, like me, I'm a super fan of DJ Quick. So when I got to meet DJ Quick in Texas, man, in South by Southwest, I was losing my mind. I was like, I cannot believe and we're just talking music, and I'm, telling him about the different songs I like. He's explaining to me like how he made certain songs. I was just like, man, this is so cool, because you always think like, when a musician is a fan too. So in your mind, you always think what it's going to be like when you meet somebody. And then when it happens and it plays out like it did in your mind, you're like, wow, that's why I really like this person's music. But there have been times where I've met people in music. I'm not going to say no names. Like,
come on, man.
I mean, all right. Well, I don't have a.
We're not a gossip. We're not a gossip show, but we'll take a little bit of.
I never really, me and Common never really blended well in situations. I mean, he probably wouldn't remember me or anything like that. I've done shows with him before and been in events and just tried to keep it cordial. And for whatever reason, it might have been whatever was going on at that particular night, because it's just, different random nights. But we never really got into a conversation that was like engaging. And a couple times it was even awkward. But I ain't got nothing against him. He probably wouldn't know me if he fell over me, but it's just in our interactions. So sometimes when you're a fan, that can be a little disappointing, because you want, hey, you love their music.
Yeah. We had a 2-time Emmy Award winning producer and director on our last show, 2 shows ago. His name is Ibe Alaquiva, and he does the Roots Picnic every year since like 2008. Okay, last 12 years. And he told us that Black Thought, like it took him like years to warm up to him. Is that, I mean, I'm sure you've been around the Roots Thought. Is that what you get as well from some of these guys?
Well, yeah, because you have to be guarded. I have to be guarded myself. I mean, sometimes people will come up to me and talk to me. They know me, but I don't know them.
Yeah.
That can make you feel vulnerable. Because someone's coming up to you, they're approaching you like they know you, they might be standing close to you, they just start talking to you, and you're looking at them trying to remember, do I really even know you? And it can be like that. And I'm sure when you put money in the mix and vast amounts of money in the mix, you have to be guarded. You can't just be everyone's friend, right?
Yeah.
So I like I said, I never took it personal. It's not like I said, I got a beef with Common. It just, that's how it happens sometimes. It also happens sometimes rappers you wouldn't think you would connect with. You connect with and you're like, man, and you like a rapper like that for me was Juvenile. When me and Juvenile met, we end up chilling it was just me, Juvenile. I mean, he left his whole entourage. We were just kicking it, like somebody from your neighborhood. And then at times I had to stop and remember, like, it's our first time chilling, but it feels like you know him forever. And watching a Juvenile video and watching a Marchitect music video, you would never think that those two personalities would mesh.
It's funny. You guys, when you talk about being guarded, I've been around a couple guys that are which quote unquote stars or influencers, whatever you want to call them. And some are like professional basketball players, but one is an actor. And he was actually on the show, the actor. But we were out one time, and this dude me and him was talking. I think we were talking to a third party, and some guy took a picture of us. And my boy he didn't really go off, but he checked the dude. Like, yo, man, what you doing taking a picture of me? Yeah. And me not being a star was thinking, like, what's the problem with that? Meanwhile, we do know pictures can go anywhere, a meme.
Oh, man, you can Photoshop them. I mean,
man.
Photoshop a chick in the picture and your wife divorce you. Like, I mean, it sounds crazy, but I mean, I've had haters try to post my address online, like all kinds of stuff, man. You got to be guarded. You got to be guarded, man.
And people like me, or let's say like a regular or average person, don't know what you guys go through, because I was looking at my friend who's an actor like he was tripping, right? Mm-hmm. But he was totally in the right to check the dude. Like, he asked him, he said, do you just take pictures of people without asking? I was like,
think about this. Imagine even if it wasn't a rap beef. Imagine if someone was just jealous of you. You're an artist. everywhere you're going to be is listed on your website. I'm at this club on Monday. I have this performance on Friday. I have this concert Saturday. Anyone can find where you're going to be eventually. So you have to think about that too when you're a public figure or an artist. You know, you have to be a little guarded in that regards.
Right.
Hey, Tech. So, you've started some, like, you know, like quite a few events, and you know, one that was near and dear to my heart that I remember that, like, you know, really like brought the community together, and like, you know, you broke a couple stars, bro. Like, I know you know that already, but like, you know, like, you're super humble. But the Groove Lounge, you know what I mean? Tell us, you know, tell us a bit about that.
Well, how that happened was in Delaware, there's a culture where in the music entertainment space where a lot of the venues hire cover bands and bands. That was big. You wouldn't see a lot of hip hop in bars. So I was thinking, what bar or a club would let hip hop in? So I had to go to the grimiest. I had to go to like the punk rock bar where, like, you know what I mean? It's like the hole in the wall. So they give us a night, and instead of making it all about myself, whereas I'm going to perform every week and build up, I reached out to every and any rapper. I didn't care if you were from downstate, upstate, and it became a place, and there was no violence, because I'm talking about people who might have had lifelong beefs. Neighborhoods that hated each other would be right in there. No one would think to fight because it would have ruined it for everybody. And that kind of built the Delaware hip hop scene to where, like, you can just do hip hop in Delaware if you wanted to, you know, or if you just wanted to be a rapper and do just that, you could. It just opened up a lot of opportunities for people. And it helped the venue. You know, the venue ended up becoming a little profitable. They end up selling it. Now it's like more of an upscale place, and they don't do hip hop there anymore. But that's how it got started. And I learned a great lesson in inclusivity. Like, you know, if you can include people, it'll just grow. You can get more done with others. So I learned a great lesson in ego with that. You know, by you give up a little to get more.
I remember weekly there'd be like a freestyle battle on stage, and I remember one incident, you know, there's one cat that we know, Swanee Rivers. It was like a super heated battle, and, like, you know, pretty much whoever won that week would get some money, and then they'd stay on for the next week. And I think he won, like, how many times in a row did he win?
A few weeks, and we used to just get the money from we just pull out a hat and collect money from the crowd, and then people would be so amped up. You know, people, oh, I got 50 on that. I got 50 on that. Like, in the moment, they would be so amped up, man, and you wouldn't know how much money was in the hat. And for a cat rapping, like, for a cat rapping who's just battling on stage, who just walked into a place and didn't even know they're going to battle, and they leave with $100 or even $50, man, you're going home like, I'm a rapper now. I'm a rapper now. And that $50 is worth more to them than $50,000 later. They'll remember that $50 for the rest of their life, man.
Hey, you know, some of the realest stuff you made me think about just now. Wasn't there recently an award show where Drake, I guess he accepted an award, but he said, like, you're on the right track, or you're doing well, or whatever, if one person comes to see you perform. Like, yes. If one person comes and pays to see you, then you've made it. I think he had some profound statement about that.
If I can address that, and I know Grouchy probably has some thoughts on it, so, you know, I won't go on too long, but basically the whole myth that there's this music industry and some wall you have to get over, it's a lie. It's a myth. The music industry happened because back in the day, recording a song or an album wasn't feasible for a regular person. You know, you would have had to have a machine that makes acetate records, and you have to have a reel-to-reel machine and all this crazy stuff. So that's what built a music industry, like the go-between. But now you don't have that. You just have people who want music and people who make music, and you can deliver it right to them. Def Jam and them labels wish that they could have a 4-person staff, a 2-person staff. You know, they're trying to be like the independent guys, you know, working leaner. You know, it's not like the days when you would go into a record label and there's 500 employees in there, 200 employees, you know? So I think Drake is all the way right with that. If you got people listening to your music, and if you have a song on YouTube with 100 plays, guaranteed some of those plays are from overseas, other countries. So I think people need to let go of the myth of, you have to climb over some wall to make it. And if you're really happy doing music and it brings you enjoyment, you're successful, because success is defined by the person.
So we're gonna mix in. We're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna mix in some comments from the chat. Thanks so much for being here, everybody in the chat. Appreciate y'all. We have one question for Grouchy that states, with Caucasians and others pretty much being culture vultures and trying to steal certain things that we've created, like, how can we put a stop to it, or at least mitigate the bleeding of, like, trademarks and copyright infringement and like all that other stuff? What's your opinion?
Well, it's very deep rooted. It's not something that the artists are going to change by, the artists are going to have to, work in collective to make change. Because speaking to what Marchitect said about, and I'm going to tie all this together, but speaking about what Marchitect said about the music industry, the barrier to entry was that not everybody could do it at one point. And, the music industry, the entire music industry was founded in 1890. That's the year that it was founded. And the first recording in history was done by two black groups, the Fisk Jubilee Singers and a gentleman by the name of George Johnson. And I think it was Thomas Edison discovered him whistling on a ferry, and he wanted to record him whistling because whistling was a tone that would end up good on acetates, whereas lower frequencies and frequencies that involve bass range, they wouldn't even come about until the 60s. So, Black people have been, and African Americans have been involved in the recording industry since the inception. The problem is the systemic racism. When they put out their records, they would draw the big lips, or they wouldn't put them on the covers. And that, that's a small example. If you look at how African Americans were referred to in media and print, coons, darkies, niggers, all of those things. And it's very ingrained in the entire industry. These record labels that we're still dealing with today are the lineage of most of these companies. And that's just the US based ones. You also have companies that are based out of Germany, France, Europe, where they own huge catalogs of Black music from, say, the early 1900s all the way up until now, and it just sits on the shelf. Culturally, that has an impact on us and what the perception of African Americans are in terms of their contribution to everything. When you think of the film industry, you usually only start thinking about it in terms of the 1930s or 40s, but there were Black studios going all the way back to the 20s, in terms of protecting the trademarks and all that, it comes down to education, because like Marchitect said too, some people's business models are built off of that. I've been dealing with that in my business now for 20 years. I'm dealing with it right up to this day, where, we're dealing with a partner that, I'll keep it light because, we're still working with them, but, the need to protect your brand and own your brands has never been more critical. And if you're a young person, the first path you should start is the path of self-enlightenment and education, and that means learning how a record label's built, reading biographies, understanding the industry you're getting into, knowing what contracts mean and what's standard and not standard. And these are all things, I'll be quite honest with you, that you can learn in a month if you're really serious about it. I mean, when you have the passion to learn about something, and it's going to directly impact you, you retain it. You retain that information. And so when you do step out onto your own for the first time, at least you have a foundation to start with. Because if you don't know anything and you only go asking people for help, people are going to rob you. when people tell you that they're your family or that they're going to look out for you and help you develop generational wealth, all of those things should be red flags. Nothing moves but the contracts. And even then, learning how to decide who to do business with is important, because we've entered into many agreements with people and made mistakes about character. We do the agreement and it looks good on paper, but now you're in business with a bad partner you really don't want to work with, and that could be a 2-year process. So the culture vulture stuff though is super real. It's all valid, and think you see the rush from all of these companies to invest now in the African American community, and they're going to donate $50 million to this and $5 million to social justice causes, is because they know that they've pillaged, and they're trying to mitigate some of the blowback that is surely going to come. And I tell you, being a Black-owned company, a certified minority business enterprise, working in the ad industry that is 95% white male. There's not even a lot of Black females, obviously not a lot of females in general, and very little Black males when you look at the percentage of workforce of some of these ad agencies. And I always tell people, these ad agencies are huge. You think about Chrysler that has 100,000 workforce. Well, WPP has 150,000 person workforce across the globe. So, these are really big companies, and these types of inequalities in the makeup of the company trickles down into everything from the advertisements you see and there not being enough minorities in them to what type of music is heard to who gets the opportunity. So it's very deep rooted, and it's institutionalized. And I understand the concept of the word institutionalized, but that kind of makes it seem like it's institutionalized in a building where the building is made up of people. So yes, it's institutionalized, but it's institutionalized by the people that are in there. So the only answer I have is to try to stay as independent as you can, learn how to be an entrepreneur as fast as you can, understand it's not going to be easy, and you probably will not get rich overnight, but Lord willing, you will. And, you'll be much healthier mentally. It's very challenging when you put your eggs in one basket, or you are relying on someone like a record label for your income. Those are things that have to be really thought out as a career path. And I always I'll stop at this, but it really comes down to understanding too, as a person, what you need to survive every month, what you need to live, what you want to have, what is your goal for financial revenues, and is that going to cost you $1,000 a month, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month? And then you have to start trying to back into how you chop that down and get that coming in on a regular basis. Otherwise, as you can see with the pandemic, relying on one stream of income, like say touring, gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey,
Yep.
I got a question, and this is for both of you guys, because you have so much. You've been in the game so long, and you have so much knowledge, man. I really like how you guys are sharing all of this, because I'm hip hop, man. So this is one of the best shows for me. Do you guys get Grouch? This is for you. Do you get do you consult? Do you does anybody ever ask you to be their mentor when they jump in the game?
I've consulted with everybody. DJ Vlad gave him the game. Q from WorldStar. I don't want to say I mentored him, but we were very cool, and I had no problem assisting WorldStar in their early inception. I've helped train the staff at Ebony, Uptown Magazine, all kinds of different brands. I'm helping a company now called thebluntness.com, which is a new African-American oriented cannabis website, lifestyle website. So I'm helping them with their staff and their strategy. I mean, I consult, I do a lot of that stuff, but I usually shy away from consulting people in favor of giving me equity in your company. So we have a new app that I launched, KR38R, KR, the number 3, the number 8, the number R. And it's artificial intelligence. It's my first venture into music, artificial intelligence, and building products using artificial intelligence. And my business partners came to me with 7 patents and an idea to launch a product for the hip hop community. And rather than consulting with them, I said, let me on board all the way, and I'll help you with the tech strategy and the getting people involved and using it and all that stuff. And so the long-winded answer to your question is yes, I do all of those things.
Hey, that's real human capital and intellectual property, man. It's a smart way to do it. It's funny. It reminds me like the 50 Cent story with Coca-Cola, right? Or vitamin water and Coca-Cola and all that. How he just went from 0 to 60 with the money because he got equity.
Yep. When that deal happened, 50's manager, God rest his soul, Chris Lighty, we had a tight relationship. And like I was saying, people would come to me with information before they went to any other press because of how fast it would be amplified. Oh, they came to me the day they did that deal, and they was like, yo, breaking news, 50 Coca-Cola got bought by Vitamin Water for 400 or 500 million, whatever, 50's cashing out. I was like, damn, they gave us quotes and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's exactly right. That's the way you have to think. If you look at 50 now, I mean, he's got to be one of the most successful hip hop executives ever.
Yeah.
Wow. Tech, I want to ask you the same thing, but from an artist perspective, in terms of that mentorship and consulting kind of thing. Because I mean, like, not only are you an artist, but you're also a producer. So like, even in the studio, I'm sure like people that come like check you out, like looking over your shoulder, what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of take like a not like I kind of take like a mafia approach when it comes to that. I look at it like the mafia. It's like a favor. You come to me. Oh, I'd rather, and plus, I'd rather empower someone so you don't keep coming back to me. So if you come to me and ask me to do something for you, and I do it for you, and you don't learn anything, you're going to come back to me the next time you need something done. So I would rather, show someone how to make beats. You know what I mean? Like maybe you don't have enough money. You don't have what I might charge for a beat. But maybe I can show you what you need to get started, and you set up a studio in your house and you make a beat. So now 2 years later, when you're a dope beat maker and I come to you for a beat, you're going to give me a beat. You're never going to charge me full price. You're always going to, if I let you come be my opening act when you don't even have a song out and now you're number one, I could be your opening act. Now, sometimes people don't reciprocate that. And that's when okay, they're not real. I mean, it's real simple. So I really try to empower the people around me, because if here's an analogy. Here's an analogy. During the COVID-19, people were going to the store. They're buying up all the hand sanitizer. Okay. So now you got clean hands, but everyone's hands you shake are dirty because no one in the neighborhood can buy hand sanitizer but you. So you just ruined your whole intent.
Love it.
So that's kind of my analogy with that. You can't hoard all the sanitizer, all the talent, all the knowledge. You can't hoard all that stuff. You understand the whole thing.
If I could say something too, from a unit economic standpoint, right? If you're running a recording studio and you bring in somebody for 4 hours who has no knowledge and is not willing to learn, more likely than not, they're going to blow their money and end up with a product that they don't even like. And then the next time they come back, it's the same thing. Whereas if you teach somebody and they have a base level of knowledge, when they come to the studio, they can work more efficient. Your billable hours are used better. You're not dealing with angry customer service. Those are all things that eat up into the time that you have, which is backed out of, your I guess we call it your hourly rate, or, the amount of time that you have to actually devote to something that you're trying to monetize. So a lot of times those types of issues of teaching people is because if you make them more efficient, you end up making more money. You end up having more time to make their product better, or to have more people to deal with, because you're not wasting 4 hours on a dumbass who can't, figure out how to get the microphones or his vocals right, or because he keeps messing up because he's nervous or something, or she's nervous, So it ends up coming down to passing knowledge along, ends up working in your benefit, especially if you're running a business. The only time you're not sharing information with somebody, if you're legit, is because somebody's going to steal it from you, or because you're trying to hoard it because you're selfish and greedy and worried that somebody else is going to outdo you. Otherwise, there's no need to never not share knowledge. It's not like you're the only person that owns this information. Everybody knows it.
That reminds me of when we interviewed Akon, Heath. If you remember, when we were talking to Akon, and we asked him like, someone like Lady Gaga, that he put on, and even like, T-Pain that he had on like his record label, like, like what does he think about them blowing up after the fact, and does he still get something back from that? And like, like the short of it, he didn't tell us like, like the whole business behind everything, but the short of it was kind of similar to what you guys are saying. He just said that, like, I wanted to let them fly. That'll come back around. I'm good. He didn't.
Joe had to do that with Pun.
Right.
In fact, Joe had to do that with Pun. He had to take the back seat.
Yeah.
Heath, you mentioned earlier about just like the knowledge possessed by these guys. Like I said, like I'm not surprised. Like I'm not surprised. Like I know it already. That's why I'm having him on, and like I can't stop smiling right now because he's my boys. You know what I mean?
That's my man.
But I want to ask y'all, man. Like like when are some books coming out, man? That's like the new currency right now in terms of audio books, or just like, you know what I mean? Like just like knowledge from like all your experiences that you've been through.
Well, I do have a book out, but it addresses more of race in society and things like that. It's really relevant for this time. It's available audio book format on YouTube. You could just look up You Heard TV and you'll find it. It's called Becoming the Man. But I was thinking about doing a book basically about my experiences in music called 0 to 40, 'cause I'm 40 years old, so 0 to 40, and just breaking it down, in 5-year chapters of what I was doing musically, and teaching people along the way the lessons that I learned. So something like that is coming, from me at least. And I would hope that Grouchy Greg writes a book someday. I'll be first in line to read that.
Both Chuck and I are working on something for All Hip Hop, talking to some publishers now. And I definitely have my own concept for a book that I think will be very unique, and it's going to dish out a good dose of knowledge along with some of my personal stories. But I've got a cool little angle to it. But all of that is coming, and mainly I'm not even thinking about money or it being a currency as much as I just want people to know that I existed in the world.
No doubt.
Book is a good way to do it.
So I got a petty question. So since this is hip hop, and since there's battles in competition, Grouch, have you ever been in a media battle or a beef?
We're kind of in one right now.
Come on.
No, keep going.
So Trump retweeted this rapper called the Marine Rapper. And one of our writers did a story on it, and in it, she referred to him as a coon. And he got upset, and he's been going hard, since. And that's pretty much it. Okay. That's all I'll talk about with that.
So he's mentioning all hip hop and everything?
Yeah.
Wow. How about like I know you said you advised and consulted with World Star, but like TMZ, Vlad, you guys are titans, man. And so has there ever been any type of situation with anybody, any of those others?
No. In fact, when I ran into Q, Lord rest his soul, God rest his soul.
Shout out, yes.
Prior to his passing, maybe 2 years before his passing, we ran into each other and took some pictures that somebody has, and he was like, "Yo, thank you, for opening up the door, the path." And he said, "You guys are Michael Jordan, and I'm LeBron James." And I said, "Bro, I can live with that." You know what I'm saying? That's epic. And everybody behind the scenes for years always tried to stoke that world star, all hip hop. Do you have a problem with Q? I mean, it came up in so many interviews, and I'm like, I have zero problems with this, guys. We put him and Vlad on our site, in the early days. Vlad occupied a healthy region of all hip hop in the early days, and I've met with Vlad. Me and Vlad used to smoke all the time on his rooftop and talk business. And, whenever I went into New York, which was quite often, we would hang out and go to local spots and all that stuff. So there's no problem. I don't have a problem with anybody, any brand, anybody trying to do anything. I'm just trying to take my brand as high and as far as it will go. If other people want to compete with us, that's fine, but I'm not looking in my rear view mirror at any point.
That's dope, man.
If I can chime in, man, as an artist, it's almost impossible to avoid a beef if you're gonna rap at some point. Because like rap is one of those things, it's almost like boxing where it's like, yo, you're like every rapper in the world is aiming at Drake's spot. Every single rapper in the world wants to be the biggest selling rapper. So think about that. You got 50 million rappers all gunning for your spot every day. And some don't even know they're gunning for your spot. They're just they just got a passion to rap, but when you think of it that way, it's like sports. It's almost unavoidable. But nowadays, I mean, you would have to do something or say something so super disrespectful for me to even think about mentioning you in my music, or that's how I feel about that. But yeah, in entertainment, unless you're on the level like where Greg's at, that behind the scenes level, anybody who's on a visible level of entertainment is going to acquire some kind of beef or conflict.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we got a fun question here. Greg, what do you think about holograms of like deceased artists? Like Tupac and Biggie being used?
It's going to be $1 billion industry. We're just at the beginning of it. There's already companies that are making them that will fit right in your house, and you can sit them right on your nightstand, and that stuff exists now, and so it's coming. Hey, if you're somebody that owns intellectual property and you are creative and forward thinking, I mean, I don't have any problem with it. I think it's cool. You can't be afraid of technology and trying to use it and explore it, because too often we're late to the table, so I think the hologram stuff is awesome, except when, they don't look like they're supposed to, like the Whitney Houston hologram.
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see the Whitney Houston doing.
Terrible.
She got dragged. They got dragged.
Ooh. Yeah. Where was it? What was it for?
Yeah, it was a Whitney Houston hologram.
Was it for an award show or like
concerts? I don't know. Can't even remember at this point. And it was probably only last week.
So I'm bridging on that. Like, I don't even think the artist has to be deceased. Consider like somebody that wants to be in more places than one, and like
right.
People that have like that upfront experience. Like, this is going to become something that's ubiquitous to the industry, really.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you don't even have to hire your background band. You just have a hologram band. You don't even have to pay them. Just be out there. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. I mean, there's a lot you could do with it.
Well, they're going to start seeing more and more of those products coming down, virtual reality, holograms, all of that. I mean, this COVID-19 isn't going away, so we're going to be in the house for a little while longer. Yeah. So, these products are coming. And, they will probably have a consumer use, is now probably going to be really validated for a lot of these things now that everybody's sitting home.
For all hip hop.
Just gave me a great idea that I'm gonna have to write down.
Hey man, hey, Global Brothers Podcast wants 10% of anything you think of during our show.
Right. No doubt.
10%.
Hey, you didn't say that. You didn't say that at the disclaimer at the beginning, man. You just said,
Right. Come on, man. You didn't see the fine print on the flyer?
Right.
nah.
Right, there we go, on the flyer. Hey, Greg, from for All Hip Hop, are you guys looking at an app format now? And like, what about augmented reality?
Augmented reality, not yet. I mean, I've thought about these things, but nothing moving towards a product. An app is definitely in the works, long overdue and coming. But yes, yep,
That's dope.
yes to both.
And Tech, I know you're a fine artist as well. You know, you do your painting and your drawing. Yeah, you're right behind you, right behind us. See what you're doing. And how do you see that visual artist play into your audiophile personality?
Interesting. I would just say like kind of like just the creativity, like just kind of like, how can I explain it? I guess being a visual artist, you really let yourself go and you can lose track of time real easy and everything like that. When you're a recording artist, sometimes time is always an issue because you're at a recording studio and it's costing you by the hour. So what the visual art has taught me to do is to let loose in the music, lose track of time. Don't really be looking at the clock, don't worry about how long it's going to take if the album's due next week, like usually when you do a painting, you just get an idea, you get a feeling, you start it when you feel like it. Like, so for example, if you're going to do a painting and you have to go to work in a half hour, you're probably not going to do the painting because you're going to do it when you're most inspired and have the time to just do it. And I try to apply that to music. So, unless I can sit down and do it, I'm not even going to do it. Whereas before I used to, okay, I'm going to wake up at 10 in the morning, record till 5 in the afternoon, you know what I mean? And have it all mapped out. But now I just kind of do it when I feel it. And I'm more productive that way. So instead of recording every day, maybe now I'm recording every 3 days, but I'm more productive.
That brought up something to me, like just as you was talking about that, of how visual art is playing a bigger part in music today, especially like hip hop and urban music. I mean, if we think about like Jay-Z mentioning Basquiat every other line, before that, like I wouldn't really say that like played such a big part. How do you guys see that advancing in terms of that crash course of worlds, visual art and musical art?
I think that with the technologies that exist, it all becomes one. Like, so for example, I don't know if you remember, like in the 90s, I think the 90s was the first time in my life that I saw, besides certain acts like Run DMC and the Beastie Boys, the 90s was a time where it was okay to like Biggie and Nirvana.
Yeah.
And you could like Soundgarden and 311. You could like all the different things. And I think what that did, it blurred the lines of fashion and everything. So now it used to be if you were a skateboarder, you looked like a skateboarder. If you were a rapper, you looked like hip hop. If you rock, you look like rock. Now all the fashion blends. Everybody wants to wear a pair of Yeezys. Everybody wants to, do this, have this device or that. So I think artistically, we're seeing that happen too. Like my last album, I designed the album cover. I did the music. I set up the distribution. I think that's what you're going to see now. Like that blending of art where you go to an art show and it's all blended. It's audio, it's video, it's visual, it's digital. I think that's just how kids in general are coming up nowadays. They're taking a little bit of everything from everywhere and putting it together to make new things. So I think in the conceptual era that we're in, that's what you have to do. It's not about inventing something from scratch and making a new process and making something that didn't exist. It's about taking pieces of things that already existed, putting them together in a new way to solve new problems. If you think about something like Facebook, Ustream had live streaming first, YouTube had videos, MySpace had the wall, Craigslist had classifieds. They've literally just taken what everyone else does and put it in one place for you, because it seems like the other companies were so focused on the one thing. Ustream is like, let's just keep focusing on streaming and how can we make it better? How can we make it faster? Meanwhile, Facebook's just like, let's just grab what's already there and put it together in a new way. So I think that's a good example of like the conceptual era. And I think that overlapped in the art as well.
Interesting.
Guys, I got to skate after this next question. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So I guess a good one for you then, Grouchy, is what are your thoughts about the messages of hip hop back in the day as opposed to hip hop today?
Well, if you talk about hip hop today, as in today, you know, you see a lot of rappers with a message now. You know, Public Enemy just dropped a new joint. YG dropped a record. I mean, everybody is dropping, you know, protest records in light of the, you know, the civil unrest here in the United States.
Yeah.
Hip hop back in the day, I mean, you know, hip hop was founded on, you know, social activism, you know. So it's always been a political, you know, tool, you know. I mean, The Message is one of the best hip hop records, if not the best hip hop record ever. And it came out, what, 82, you know, 83. So, you know, my thoughts on it are it's in a good place now. You know, it's the world's biggest genre of music. And, you know, now that it's that big in terms of audience attention, I think that you see the power that it really holds. You know, you look at anything that's happened over the past 6 months and, you know, hip hop has been really in the forefront. You know, George Floyd was a rapper with Trey the Truth. And, you know, that helped put pressure in Houston. And, you know, they were in Minneapolis, right at the front lines, you know, calling for action. And, you know, they haven't let up since. So, you know, Killer Mike, T.I., you know, I mean, there's a lot of people. So I'm pretty happy with where hip hop is right now. You have a lot to choose from now. If you want to listen to some drug rap and, you know, a 15-year-old talking about how much sex he has, you can listen to that all day. And if you want to listen to something more mature, you know, you can go listen to Run the Jewels.
Variety.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Diversity, variety, yeah.
The thing is you know, and I'll go with this one. The job now is on the consumer. You know, there was a point where music was curated for you and handed to you, you know, before the internet and before Napster, you know. Then all of a sudden it became this vast library streaming that, you know, you really have to go through unless you rely on somebody curating a playlist for you. So, you know, you have to do some work, but all of the hip hop that you love or that you like or that you may think is missing, you know, there are artists there filling that void. You know, Griselda is a great example of, you know, guys that have stuck to boom bap and had immense success, you know, sticking to their guns, literally and figuratively.
Hey, man, Griselda, wow, those guys remind me of Mop, M-O-P. That's who they remind me of with the Buffalo version. But yeah, man, wow, they
or the Locks.
True.
Like no, not the Locks, the Warlocks.
Ooh.
That's what they remind me of. Like when they first came in the game.
Oh, okay.
Before they got shiny.
Hey, Greg. Wow. Oh man. Hey, man, hip hop. I love it. Like, you know, pretty much they are hip hop. Griselda's hip hop. We're just trying to send that shout out and let y'all understand that message. If you ain't heard of them yet, go listen to them. Greg, before I let you go, brother, the show is called Global Brothers Podcast. So please give us your insight on the global reach of hip hop. And one of our particular focuses is the continent, is Africa. You know, so like, you know, how do you feel that, like, you know, hip hop is like, you know, touching the continent, and what could be that vice versa?
Yeah, it's huge. You know, everybody here looks at it as an emerging market. You know, obviously hip hop, Afrobeat, those things have been around for decades. But, here in the US, a lot of people are warming up. You see Def Jam just launched Africa, an office in Africa, and they signed like 15 of the major acts, from Nigeria to South Africa. And they've got 2 offices, one in Lagos and one in South Africa. So, I mean, it's in terms of the commoditization of it for the United States, it's definitely coming. And I think it's great, because hip hop is one of those languages where, it truly is a universal language. I mean, I quite often listen to rap in other languages, simply because the flow sounds good and, the beat is something that I take to. But, if you look at the streaming numbers on any of these platforms, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of these things are being powered by hip hop artists. Tekashi 6ix9ine was the most watched artist on Instagram. Before that, it was D Nice with his quarantine stuff. So hip hop has drawn a huge audience to these platforms.
That's what's up, man. It's dope.
And that speaks to their global, the global reach of all of these artists.
For sure. And what about you personally? Like, because I mean, I'm kind of trying to insert myself into the narrative. I mean, let me know. I got you, bro. I mean, Africa right here. And I already got business over there. So let me know, brother. I got you.
All right, man. We go so far back. I would trust you with my life.
Gucci, man.
Almost. Almost all the way up to that one last point.
Right. Now fall back, fall backwards.
I definitely appreciate y'all having me.
Well,
the conversation's so good. I definitely could go on all day.
I know you could. I know you, man. Two more quick things. One, which I know you wanted to do. Tell us about your new album,
Guns, Germs, and Beats. It's a play off of a book by what's his name, Jared Diamond, and it's called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And it's the history of how humanity has gotten to where they are, like all the migrations throughout history. And basically, the book ends by saying the reason why Europeans conquered the world is because they had guns, germs, and steel. So I figured during this pandemic, it's guns, germs, and beats, because you see everything, all the civil unrest and everything. Those are the guns. The COVID is the germs, and I'm dealing with it all by staying in the house making beats. So guns, germs, and beats.
And how's that being received? Like, what's your what's your signature track on there?
Oh, right now I have the music video Saturday Night out. I have that and a video called You Ain't Ready Yet, produced by DJ Mech. And I mean, my fans are really loving it. I try to stick with music that's sincere to my heart, like I don't follow a formula, but I try to keep it real and keep it sincere. When I say keep it real, I don't mean in the sense of like, yeah, I'm keeping it real. I mean like keep it real, meaning it's not really contrived. So whether you like it or not, you're never going to listen to it and say, yeah, this is forced or contrived.
Let us know how we can find out information about what Marchitect is doing. Give your social media, your website, your Spotify. Yeah.
I'm on all the different social media platforms as Marchitect. That's like architect with an M. Marchitect, Marchitect. I'm on all streaming platforms. And my group, the 49ers, as well. We have an extensive catalog. If you Google the 49ers, we have all our lyrics to all our releases available on the internet, which helps our international fans understand our music and our concepts. So it's all out there. And I definitely appreciate y'all for supporting. And it's just like Marchitect, architect with an M.
That's what's up, brother. Appreciate you, man. Yo, as we always say at this time, live global and prosper. Big.
Peace, y'all. Love y'all. Peace.
Check us out on YouTube, Global Brothers Podcast, and please subscribe and share and, continue to support, good content.
Tell everybody.
Mr. Worldwide.